Let's talk about thermaling. In this video, I'll cover why good thermaling is important, models of typical thermals, entering thermals, centering methods, and leaving thermals. Now, thermaling is an essential skill for every soaring pilot. If conditions are present, it's a testable skill on check rides in the U.S. The ability to thermal efficiently will allow a soaring pilot to get off tow earlier, stay up longer, climb faster, and go farther. Your passengers will also appreciate spending as little time as possible going around in circles. Efficient thermaling increases your average cross-country speed. Now you may think, I'm in no rush. Well, you may not think there's a time element. The day is only so long, and you don't want to be a long way from home when the day finally dies. So there definitely is a time element. Your cross-country speed when thermaling is 0, and nothing averages like a 0. Before we get into how to thermal, let's take a look at some theoretical models of a typical thermal. Thermals have been described by experts in the field as elongated conical columns, a bubble, and a plume. Each of these models accounts for different conditions that cause them, the size of the warm area, etc. The elongated column is a typical way we usually think of thermals, as a constant column of rising air from the ground to its top, widening with altitude. The bubble model describes a disconnected bubble of rising air and may account for why the glider directly above you is climbing great while you're not finding any appreciable lift at all. And the plume model may account for a more irregular behavior, possibly with multiple cores. But what they all have in common is the idea of a core or cores where the air is rising fastest, more or less in the center, while the whole thermal is surrounded by sinking air, and a turbulent area in the transition between the rising and sinking air, all leaning over or blowing with the wind. Thermals generally will be narrower and weaker in the lower portions, becoming stronger and wider as the rising air has accelerated with altitude, then weaker again at their tops. In real life, the actual shape and motions can be more complicated, and we need to modify our conceptual model as we soar. If we watch the birds thermaling, they usually won't fly the same circle for long. Like the birds, our thermaling is a series of corrections and adjustments to try to move the glider and to keep in the strongest lift within the center of the thermal. There are several methods of thermaling. You'll probably use 2 or more during any one flight. The FAA's Glider Flying Handbook provides 4 ways to do it, and there are others. What they all have in common is identifying the strongest and weakest part of the thermal as we circle, then shifting the circle according to that data by either flying wings level for a very few seconds or adjusting the bank angle. One of the best thermaling gliders out there is a Schweitzer 126, a low-performance glider by all accounts, but a thermaling superstar. When Soaring magazine writes about thermaling in its aerodynamics puzzler articles, they always compare to other gliders to the 126. What makes the 126 thermal so well is its ability to fly slowly and therefore make small radius turns in the thermal core without excessively steep bank angles. Faster gliders will make wider circles and need steeper banks to stay near the core. Those steep banks take extra energy to fly. So it's going to be important to fly the right speed. Flying faster than necessary makes bigger turns and slower climbs. We would like to thermal at the minimum sink speed for the bank angle in use. That speed is going to vary by the exact same percentage for every glider you ever fly. The formula is based on the square root of the load factor, but who can do that in your head? But it works out like this. In a 30-degree bank, the speed increases about 7%, and in a 45-degree bank, almost 19%. But let's make it a little easier since our bank and speed measurements aren't very precise anyway. Consider the 7% for a 30-degree bank to be a little less than 10%, and the 19% to be simply 20%. So for a glider like the 233, with a wings level minimum sink speed of 42 for a 30-degree bank, 10% is 4.2, and a little less is 3. So 42 plus 3 is 45. For a 45-degree bank, 20% of 42 is 8 point something, and 42 plus 8 is 50. So our speed should be held between 45 and 50, when banking between 30 and 45 degrees, which is going to be most of the time. And of course, you don't have to figure that out for every thermal, just once per glider. For comparison, a circle made with a 45-degree bank will be roughly half the size of one made at 25 degrees, and less than 3/4 of one made at 30. As we can see in this diagram, there's very little increase in sink rate for bank angles up to about 35 degrees, and the turn radius decreases quickly with increasing bank. Bank angles over 50 see a rapid increase in sink rate with little change in turn radius. Therefore, the best balance of sink rate and turning radius is found to be between about 30 and 45 degrees of bank. If the thermal is really wide, like under a large cumulus cloud, you might be able to stay in strong lift with a lower bank angle, increasing your efficiency. Conversely, a narrow thermal may require you to use steep banks to stay within the confines of the thermal. Pitch and bank control, staying coordinated, that is, yawstring in the middle, are going to be essential, and those skills need to be pretty solid or you won't be able to thermal consistently. Upward gusts from the thermal will cause airspeed bumps, so flying a consistent pitch attitude for the target airspeed and not chasing an airspeed will be more efficient. Good bank control is essential to fly consistent circles and properly move the circle in the intended direction. A note on the variometer. Your first indication of the thermal will be the feel of it, and you may hear the wind rush and get a small airspeed bump. The vario has a lag. The glider must actually climb before the vario will indicate it, though it will start to move in the right direction before the indication is accurate. As we approach the thermal, we often encounter an area of sink that surrounds it. As the sink rate starts to reduce, get ready, you're getting close to the lift. Entering. When entering a thermal, ideally you should turn before the vario peaks. Remember, it has a lag. When turning in, the turn should be as high a roll rate as practical. If you're already at thermaling speed, you should wait several seconds before commencing the turn. If at cruising speed, you'll need to react faster to avoid flying through the thermal. But which way to turn? If you're just getting off tow in a thermal, or there's already a glider established in the thermal, the choice is already made. If one wing is suddenly lifted, that's likely the side with the better lift. Turn towards the lifted wing. Other than that, it's a guess. Maybe turn towards the center of the cloud, the upwind side of the cloud, or turn left because you've been turning right a lot lately. Just don't fly through the thermal trying to decide which way to go. When you make your first turn, if the lift is lost in the first 90 degrees of turn, it might be best to abandon it and move on, unless you're so low that you need to work this thermal. If lift is maintained for more than the first 90 degrees, but turns to sink less than 180 degrees of turn, you probably turn in the wrong direction. So, when on a heading 270 degrees from the original course, fly straight to go to the other side of the thermal and resume the original turn. Don't change turn direction. So let's take a look at some of the techniques you can employ to center a thermal and improve your skills. The first and simplest one is the best worth sector method. This is the method advocated by Bob Wander in his book, The Art of Thermaling Made Easy, and demonstrated in the popular YouTube video by Eric Carden called How to Thermal Easy as 1, 2, 3 Method. It is to fly constant bank circles at a constant airspeed and to note which side of the circle consistently has the strongest or weakest lift. Now you might think of it as the north side or by some landmarks towards the city or the mountain, but keep track of where you are in the circle and the corresponding lift. Even say it out loud. South side, 4 knots. West side, 3 knots. Here on the north side, 0, etc. Then roll out when heading in the direction of the strongest lift, or away from the weakest lift, for 2 to 3 seconds and roll back in. If the lift difference is small, then make a smaller adjustment, a second or 2. Don't wait for the strong lift before turning back in, as we're flying tangent to it. It's better to take a little bites at a time with the adjustment than fly straight for too long and end up leaving the thermal entirely. A variation on this is to straighten or shallow the bank 60 degrees after the weakest lift indication on the vario. This allows for the lag in the variometer, since we really want to head 90 degrees from the weakest point. The surge method is for when you can feel a strong surge re-entering the core of the thermal. Straighten up for 1 or 2 seconds, then resume the turn. This should put you a little deeper into the thermal before resuming the circle. Another method, described by Russell Holtz in his flight training manual for gliders, has a few rules to follow. When encountering lift, fly straight to the point of maximum lift. The vario has too much lag, so it's mostly by the seat of your pants. When the lift is constant, turn 90 degrees. Therefore, if you're in constant lift, you keep turning 90 degrees or going in circles. If the lift is decreasing, turn 180 degrees. And if you fly out of lift, turn around and fly straight back into it until it peaks and then turn again. Here's a flow diagram of the rules and a graphic of how they work in practice. Pause the video if you want to study it a little bit longer. While the previous methods maintained a constant bank angle unless shifting the circle, this last and my favorite method, the Huth method, was devised by twice world champion Heinz Huth and involves using a variable bank angle in the turn. It works well with an initial bank of around 30 degrees. When the surge is felt or seen on the vario, increase the bank angle to 45 to 50 for 300 degrees of turn. Then shallow the bank by 5 or 10 degrees. This works well especially when the thermal is narrow, as it will be in its lower portions. I consider a steep bank as the closest I can get to I want to stay here. So you can think of it as banking in the steepest in the good lift and shallowest in the weakest part. But be careful not to shallow out too much. Again, maybe a 10-degree bank angle difference. The shallow bank portion will then widen the turn radius and put you behind where you were on the previous turn. Then increase the bank as the lift gets strongest. If you have an audio vario, the frequency on the vario can almost act like a bank angle director. Leaving. There are many reasons to leave a thermal. Your passenger isn't appreciating the turns anymore. You're nearing the cloud clearance requirements below the cloud. The thermal has weakened and it's time to move on. You've lost sight of the other glider near you and there are too many others to keep track of. You're drifting away from where you want to go. You're getting low and need to concentrate on landing, or you're becoming fatigued, drowsy, angry, hypoxic, dehydrated, or excessively hot or cold. When you're thermaling, figure out where you want to go next before you need to leave. What cloud looks good? How have they been developing over the past few minutes? Where are the other gliders circling? Which way on course or toward home? As you leave the thermal, expect to encounter the sink that surrounds it. Perhaps you can pick up some speed as you fly through the core for the last time to minimize the time in the sink. It takes time to get good at thermaling, and each glider will be a little different. It's as much art as it is science. Be patient and practice. Thermals are for climbing and moving on. Don't stay in the same thermal and try to squeeze every last foot out of it unless that's really necessary. And follow the birds. Well, that's it for now. Try playing with these methods and flying them on paper until you get a good firm understanding in your head. Then go practice. Please comment, subscribe, and check out my Soaring resources page, thesoaringpage.com. Thanks for watching.